All right, so I'm here with Elena Seranova, and she's a very successful woman herself, and she's doing what we're going to do is do a little interview and talk about deeper mixed signals and everything that females and males may show, and just ultimately how we can kind of react now in these specific situations that we can ultimately grow and develop, and how to handle these mixed signals and whatnot. So, Elena, could you to give us a little background about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. So my background is also in psychology. I was doing consulting back in the days myself. Had a successful practice for 5 years, and I kind of got into neuroscience, and I kind of got fascinated by neuroscience and studying the human brain. So then I proceeded to pursue a master's degree in neuroscience. And then I kind of got fascinated by the wet lab science. So for this reason, I went even further, and now I'm a final year PhD candidate in stem cell biology. So it kind of escalated quickly from there. So I also did a biotech startup along the way between my master's and my PhD. So I have quite an interdisciplinary background, really. But psychology and business are my two big passions, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is built around this. And at the moment, I'm offering a one-on-one mentorship on business strategy, but also a big part of my work is, to be diving deep into confidence issues, self-esteem, and things like this. Because what I've seen over the years is that um, if there is a lack of confidence on self-esteem, there won't be any success in business or in your personal life. Like, it's impossible to achieve success if you're not confident in yourself. And this is what this episode will all be about. I think it will be really interesting because this is a subject that may even be a taboo subject for some people, and people don't really discuss it openly because, like, people are not usually open to discuss that they're doing therapy and that they're having some issues. And then, like, it's really, really hard, really. And especially when you start dating and when you start seeing someone, you don't want to be bringing those issues up. But what usually happens is that even if you're trying hard, but you don't have those fundamentals kind of set up for yourself, like, it's very, very hard to be in a good relationship, in a relationship that is comfortable for both partners. And there are no microaggressions, things like that, because lack of self-esteem leads to multiple issues. Could be microaggressions, could be resentment, could be jealousy, a bunch of things. And this happens in all kinds of relationships. It's either a serious relationship or a casual relationship, it doesn't matter. And like, I'm a big believer that before actually starting to date someone, you kind of need to work on yourself, and build those fundamentals in
Yeah.
order to be ready to date. And you won't be ready to date if you're not okay with yourself.
hmm Yeah, no, and I 100% agree with you on that. One of the things that I really like that you said, that you cannot be successful really in any sort of life. Well, you can, but if you're going to maximize your success, you need to ultimately kind of figure out your confidence, your self-esteem. You need to figure that out first. So if you're not confident in yourself, how are you going to be confident in your relationship? How are you going to trust a partner if you're not confident in yourself? How are you going to be confident that you can take a business that you want to do to the next level ultimately? So one of those things that we all need to focus on, and really the core of everyone, all the viewers and everything, you got to really knock down that, narrow in on it. You got to shoot it and just work on it. And like I said, one of the things I try to instill with all my viewers and everything, I want them to be confident. I want them to trust themselves. I want them to believe in themselves. So it really, again, really powerful thing. And if you can,
Yeah.
everything that you have in your future really relies on yourself. And if you can figure that out, you can figure yourself out, dig down deep inside of you, you're going to nail it. Like some people are embarrassed about some things that they do. So like you mentioned, like therapy and everything, right? So with people, some people are embarrassed that they go to therapy. I think therapy is fucking awesome. Okay. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's awesome. And I think it's fun to have someone on your side or something who can just listen to you and let you hear out your emotions. And what ultimately what they'll do is kind of persuade you to go to the next level. just kind of increase your personal value ultimately. And with me, when I went to therapy, and I'm actually looking for a new therapist at the moment, I just think it was cool. It was fun, and it was fun to talk to my therapist. We got along well. He gave me pointers. I've had female therapists too. She gave me pointers. She kind of helps me discover why I am the way I am, how I can kind of get over some of the personal issues that I have, and ultimately it's personal development. So, I mean, again, people get embarrassed about little things, but as humans, we are who we are. We have to own up who we are. And with that, that's where it's how we become internally more powerful. And like you said, one of the things that you are trying to help people do is, people who are interested in starting up businesses, you're trying to push them and lead them the right direction. Well, ultimately, you can't do that if you don't trust yourself. And like, for example, yourself, you obviously have a lot of confidence in yourself. This is why you studied psychology. You running your own business, you're going for a PhD and everything. This is a high status woman. Okay. So ultimately she's lifting the ladder, and she's doing this because she's really powerful and really confident in herself. So again, everyone, Elena, someone that you really want to listen to from a female perspective, So one of the things that I wanted to really touch into was maybe some reasons why we, like in relationships or something, why we are not as confident. So for example, a lot of questions that I often get are mixed signals, right? So oftentimes I'll have a girl or a female or male hit me up and say, hey, I'm experiencing these mixed signals. Can you dive into maybe why we may see mixed signals from partners?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think this is a very interesting topic, and there might be multiple reasons as to why someone feels that they get mixed signals. So, of course, the first possibility is that they do indeed get the mixed signals, but besides this, there are usually other reasons for them to see the mixed signals. So, for instance, the self-esteem is the first one, of course, because they're coming from a place of kind of an insecurity whenever they see their partner perhaps being busy with work or with something else and not giving them 100% of their attention, which kind of leads us to a codependency, basically. So whenever two people are codependent, or one person is codependent to the other, whenever they don't get 100% of the attention that they crave, they do feel that they're getting mixed signals. And this is why they really need to ask themselves, so if I'm in a relationship with someone, or if I just started dating someone and they don't reply to my text message for half a day, is this really that tragic? So do you think that whatever you have is so fragile that if the person does not reply for half a day, it's broken? So, like, if you think this way, so you should probably leave this relationship anyway. But if you see it from an objective point of view, you would say, okay, so maybe this person is at work, maybe something happened, maybe they have their own things. And the reason that people are focusing on this is because, again, they're looking for reasons to be insecure, because they're in this negative feedback loop where they're constantly looking for reasons to be upset. They're like those kind of people that no matter you do for them, they would always find something to be upset about.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really feel good for the other person as well. And the thing here is to find the right things to focus on first, of course, to try and be objective and ask yourself whether this is indeed a mixed signal. And secondly, if you're both adults and if you're both having a busy life and you're having your job or your business to run, things like that, or your studies, you kind of need to focus on that more. And this is where the focus for everyone in a relationship should be, and especially in the beginning, and especially in a phase of their life where they might be busy with work or studies. Because if you just focus on yourself and the tasks that you need to be going through every day for your self-development, you won't even notice that the other person, was late to reply to you, because you will be focusing on developing yourself and taking care of your business and taking care of yourself, things like that. Mm-hmm. So this is the first reason. So it all comes from a place of insecurity. Of course, those insecurities might have been created for for multiple reasons. And something very, very common that I see in my customers as well is that, they all have some childhood traumas or some traumas from previous relationships.
Okay.
So the first one, the childhood traumas, is usually quite deep. So, when you come from an environment where, you live through your parents' divorce and you've seen your parents cheating on each other, things like this is very, very hard for you to trust a potential partner, because again, you're looking for reasons to be upset. So it's like there's been a psychological experiment where participants were asked to close their eyes, and while they had their eyes closed, they were told that after they open their eyes, they need to start focusing on the blue objects in the room straight away, and count them. And the other group of participants was asked to focus on the red objects in the room and start counting them when they opened the eyes. And, of course, in the two groups, whatever color they were told to focus on, like those were the objects that they counted the most, despite the objects being on same numbers. And that's the thing there, like whatever you seek for, you're focusing on. And this is the thing with your perspective. So you also need to be self-evaluating your perspective on anything, including the relationships. And again, the easiest way to do this, I think, is to focus on yourself and your self-development first, because when you get to the stage where you have all of your priorities right, and you have you're really focusing on the things that matter to you, you won't have this space in your head to be focusing on, oh my God, why didn't he or she texted me back? Why it's been like half a day. And then when this text comes, you wouldn't feel resentment or something, or you wouldn't be moody and you wouldn't tell this person off just because you've been busy with your own stuff.
Right.
And I think it's really important with relationships to evaluate whether you're at the same kind of dating stage with the person that you want to get together. Because if you're at completely different stages and, one person is broke and is trying to work very hard and is busy with like a bunch of things, and the other person is not, and they're just spending their time thinking, oh, why didn't he or she texted me? It will be quite hard for both people to handle this.
Right.
Yeah, and I think there's another point here, that when we're choosing partners, this also has to do with self-esteem and how you evaluate yourself. Because what happens is that what I've seen, and especially with my female customers, is that they're looking for reasons to date someone. And sometimes this approach is wrong, because if you're going on multiple dates and you do see the red signs, you do see the red flags, and that they're there, it's something that they said or they did, and you didn't really like that. So it's already not 100% compatibility, but you say, okay, but let me give him another chance. Okay, let's see where this goes. And then there's another red flag, but because you already like the person, you keep on ignoring the red flags. And then, what's going to... where will this lead you? It's not going to be a perfect match because you're ignoring the red flags early on. So what I suggest people doing is actually, when they start dating, is to start looking for reasons to reject, to start looking for reasons to say no to someone, to not see them again. Because if you keep on going through this process, yes, it might be a lengthy process and it might be hard to find someone that is 100% compatible, but at some point you will find the person that, if they won't check 100% of the boxes, they will check 90% of them. So you don't have to settle for someone that is, that checks only 30% of the boxes. And then you won't have different kind of problems in the relationship. And, again, if you do have a low self-esteem, you will settle much easily, and then you will think that it's okay for you to date someone because you're not really worthy of anything better.
Right. Yeah, and I think those are interesting points. One of the things that I always try to portray is, you want to have high standards for yourself, and you should have the higher standards, whether it be your relationship, whether it be your life and your future. You want to have the highest possible standards. And for most people, I don't think their fucking standards are high enough. I think that whether it's a lot of people settle, for example. So I see a lot of shitty relationships out there because ultimately I just think that they feel comfortable, but they're not going. They know, like, they can do better, and they can do better personality wise, but I don't think they're very compatible. Or I think there's a lot of red flags that people missed out on. Or one party gets treated like crap, and one party gets walked all over. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And I think for a lot of people, that because they're just kind of happy and they're settled down, they kind of lose track of the actual meaning of a relationship. So oftentimes as relationships develop and you get as you get more comfortable with people, you kind of almost stop oftentimes one party starts to kind of treat the other party like crap. So and oftentimes for me, the people that I work with, most of the time the men start to get treated like crap, and they kind of, someone who's already kind of feeling those negative emotions and everything, ultimately it kind of just adds on and packs onto that insecurity, and they just keep fighting and fighting and fighting and trying to like do what they can to get that approval from perhaps the female, right? And ultimately what they should be doing is they should have enough self-respect to just walk the fuck away before they can keep getting beaten down and beaten down like roadkill, and the car keeps going over you. And no one wants that. No one wants that. But again, it's almost that lack of self-pride and that and everything that you need as a man or even a female, right? That you just kind of overlook it and you just think, I just need that approval. I just need that approval. I just want that approval. And I think a lot of times with people who come up to me, right? A lot of times they get like broken up with or something, and they'll be like, I just want her back so I can get that approval, then I want to walk away. What the hell do you need that for? What does that do for you? It's a waste of time. You should want someone who ultimately is just going to portray your best self. I always say 1 + 1 shouldn't equal 2. It should equal freaking 17. You want someone who's going to keep building on that. So I think you bring up a lot of good points there.
Yeah. So. And when you're coming from this place of low self-esteem, and as you said, they might be seeking the approval of the other partner, it's basically their ego talking, and what they really give up on is basically themselves. Because when you are focused on the self-development kind of aspect, like as I said, like I do believe that people need to keep on looking for reasons to reject someone in the early stages of dating. And actually, like, before you even go to this process, what you do is you just, like, after a bad breakup or something, you just need to take some time for yourself and just completely concentrate on your self-development. And what will happen then is that when you go back to the dating scene, you will be you'll have like such good traits, and you will be such an interesting person, so you will inevitably attract a very good match for yourself.
Right.
It's inevitable. It will, you can do it. You can make it inevitable, And this is something that basically happens in business as well. So I have an analogy here where, when you have a company and you have a service or a product, and you just keep on polishing and you just keep on doing your market research, you're collecting market intelligence, you're asking your customers what they want, and then you're improving this product and this service. And then at some point you just realize, okay, so now I have enough demand, so I can increase my price in the product. Okay, so then I can actually get what I want for what I worked. And maybe it sounds a bit funny now that I'm saying it out loud, but you get my point, right? And it's like this has been like this has been something that I've been I've been talking about a lot with my customers, with my clients. I'm mostly working with women, but I do have male customers as well. And I think that, like, what I see is that, especially after a breakup of after a long-term relationship, people get to feel so crappy because this is what gets them into a more severe negative feedback loop
Mm-hmm.
because they said, okay, so I wasn't happy in my relationship and now my relationship is over. So I wasn't even worthy of this relationship. And
Right.
then, they just start drinking. They're not taking care
Yeah.
of themselves. They don't go to the
Right.
gym, and if you have a completely different approach and say, okay, so this didn't work, and how can I better myself for the
Yeah.
best relationship that will find me eventually out there? And you just focus on your physical and your mental self-development, your intellectual self-development, and then eventually it will happen because you will be ready and you will have a lot to offer, you
Yeah.
know
Right.
and like, again, this approach is like very, very good. This mindset is very, very good to have for both your personal life and your professional life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. And I think you bring up an interesting point. Like when a relationship breaks or something, a lot of people think it's an issue with them. Well, here's the thing. Both parties weren't perfect. No one's perfect in a relationship. If there was such thing as a perfect relationship,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
that would be great. But again, no one's ever had a perfect relationship. But it's one of the things is that you gotta figure it out yourself. You need to develop yourself and everything. So for me, a lot of my viewers and everything, they come to me and they're like, I'm a failure. I'm a failure. I can't make it work. Like I just got out of a 7-year relationship. It hasn't worked out. I feel like I suck. And they come with like these negative mindsets, right? Well, one of the things that they don't realize is I've failed at every fucking relationship I've ever been in. Okay. But what I do is I take what I've learned from what I could have done better, and I work to improve myself. Do I need to be more affectionate? Do I need to lay back a little bit? Do I need to text them a little less? Do I need to take them out more? Do I need to meet their parents earlier? Who the hell knows, right? And what I do is I kind of look at the result of the relationship, and ultimately I decide, okay, well, here's how I can improve. And it's not just relationships, it's anything in life. So as you talk about business, you're going to have business failures too, right? So, you might have a bad quarter, or you might have a bad month or a bad week or something, bad year, who knows. What you do is you analyze the results, you figure out where you went wrong, how you can improve, and you game plan around it so you can shoot up and then you don't make the same mistakes. Because if you're going to continuously make the same mistakes, then what are you going to gain? You're just going to go into a circle, just over, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
And again, you can't improve that way. What we should be doing as humans is ultimately doing what we can to better ourselves each and every day, as we call it, kaizening, right? So we want to get a little better each and every day. And because of that, that's how we can grow ultimately. So I think it's very powerful. And again, it goes deeper. It goes back into this. It's not this. It's a self-esteem thing. Do you have enough self-esteem to realize, hey, fuck it, I failed. I'm going to fail in life. It's a result. It's not like I'm a horrible person. It's not like I'm a useless human being. You take that and you kind of build on it. And again, you got to focus on the self-esteem issue. And if you don't have the self-esteem, then you can't grow, you can't develop, you can't make like you said, a relationship work, a business idea work. You can't be successful at work because you're looking for approval from everyone else. You just need your own approval. That's the most important thing, I feel like, for human beings, is having that self-love, to be just confident in yourself, just portray who the fuck you are and just be who you are. And without that, you can't take things to the next level.
Absolutely. And I think that it's really, really cool that you brought this up, because it's basically playing offense instead of playing defense.
Right.
And when you're overanalyzing everything, when you're overanalyzing what's happening to you and what the other person is doing, it's basically you're doing it because you want to feel you want to feel this void inside, because you're actually not focusing on your self-development. So there is something missing there. There is an emptiness, and you're trying to fill this in with external circumstances and overthinking everything instead of actually focusing on yourself.
Yeah.
And you mentioned growth here, and this is indeed very, very important, because this is how you're going to grow if you're playing on the offense all the time. And it's you against the world, and no matter how many times you fall, if you keep on getting up, eventually you will get to where you want to be. And this is actually the name of my business as well. So it's called Guild of Growth, for this reason, because I think that Guild of Growth is a mindset for me. So it's I think it's a great concept, because you just keep on growing and growing and growing. It's a continuous process. It never stops.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you this. Do you have any recommendations for some people who may be experiencing some sort of self-esteem issues, whether it be just personal, maybe they're not confident in themselves? What do you think that how they can, men and female, can handle these?
Yeah, I have a couple of tips that I personally use as well that
Hmm.
kind of make me change my perspective when I
Sure.
need to.
Yeah.
So to this whole issue of low self-esteem, of course, comes with the issue of not being able to set up successful boundaries, whether at work or in personal relationships. And
Mhm.
this is something that a lot of people are suffering from, because again, subconsciously they think that they don't actually feel like they're worth it, to claim
Deserve love
something
for
that
her.
is more comfortable for them. And in those kind of situations, there is a visualization exercise that I recommend to my customers. And it's like, so imagine that this particular situation that you're having. So let's say you're on a second or third date with a person that you really like,
Yeah.
but you see that, they're looking on the TV screen behind you, they don't really give you the attention that you want, and you don't really feel that this, like the interest is mutual. So in order to evaluate this situation objectively, what I suggest is to just imagine your favorite celebrity. So let's say a very successful actress or actor who is handsome and successful, and they're very, very confident in themselves. And then imagine that this successful person is actually on a date with the person that you're on a date with. Okay. And then kind of think about it and think about their reactions. So if they're on a date with this person and this person is ignoring them,
Hmm.
what would they do? What would Scarlett Johansson would do if
Hmm.
she would be on a date with this guy that is looking on the screen behind her?
Hmm.
She would just get up and leave, and she would never pick up the phone again.
Right.
So
Yeah.
why are you not doing the same?
Yeah.
And there, like, the next thing is that if he was on a date with Scarlett Johansson, he wouldn't actually treat her like this. So why is he treating you differently? Okay, so then you need to ask yourself, okay, so either this guy is not the right for me, or I need to work on myself because I don't have that much to offer. And this is another thing that I see with women a lot, is that they complain and they say, oh my god, all men are shit and I can't find an interesting person to date and things like this. And
Yeah.
actually, and then I ask them, okay, so what do you have to offer? Because if you're after this package guy that is like really cool, handsome, successful, rich, like you name it, like
Hmm.
he's like
Yeah.
he's the perfect guy that your mom wants you to marry. He's a neurosurgeon or something, or like a 7-figure e-commerce dealer, which I know.
Yeah.
And then, like, what do you bring to the table?
Right.
Okay, you're not funny. You don't have any interesting subjects to talk about. You have a pretty okay figure, but this is it. You're not really making an effort there either. You're
Yeah.
not. It's not that you're working out every day. So who are you after?
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's the thing. And if you're focusing, if you keep on focusing on on the opposite sex, like, you'll never make progress. You need to focus on yourself first, and you need to put yourself in a position where the right guy that you'll fall in love with won't be able to walk away. Okay,
Hmm.
like it's the same way that like you get your first iPhone and this is it. You're never going back to Android. I mean, come on,
Right.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah. I
yeah,
was.
that's a
Yeah.
confidence tip there. I think it's really, really useful, and it's kind of like, if you want to look at it from a different perspective, it doesn't need to be a successful or attractive person. So for instance, if it's in a professional setting, you can say, okay, so what if I'm the most successful person in my field? So let's say you're doing consulting and, like, you don't know why, like, you don't get any sales, and then ask yourself, okay, what if I was Tony Robbins offering 30-minute strategy calls? Like, would I get booked? Well, hell yeah, because I would be able to convince the customer. So it all comes from within. So I
Mhm.
actually think that when a person experiences like some low self-esteem, and like when they can't really make things work, the first thing is that, okay, what do I do in order to make this better? So it's basically like a mindset where you're 100% responsible for yourself, and you never blame anyone else, and this is how you grow. So this is another perspective change that I'm trying to you know, to help other people have, is that you're coming from this position of extreme ownership of your reality, and you're just owning it, and you're like, okay, so like this doesn't happen, okay, how do I make it work? It's always basically seeking the solution instead of focusing on the problem. So focusing on the problem as it is, saying, okay, what do I do in order to boost my self-esteem, is the wrong question. The right question is to, how do I get in a position where I actually don't need to have self-esteem issues? And it's all about taking actions on, like, you know, every single day, you know, you're taking actions to get better. You're consistently working to get better in all aspects of your life. And again, health-wise, and, you know, physical shape and mental shape, if you're working on those things every day, success will be inevitable. You will inevitably get the partner that you want. You will inevitably get the job that you want. Okay. And if you're saying, yeah, but like the world out there is so cruel, and I don't like these women, and they're so picky and things like this, but like like, what are they going to admire you for playing video games 10 hours a day and, like, you know, drinking Gatorade or something? Well, no, there is nothing to admire about you.
Right.
So, you know, self-esteem issues, the first thing you need to do is to ask you, okay, how do I get better? This is it. And, you know, when you're in a situation where you want an immediate kind of confidence boost, just, you know, shift your mindset and just imagine that you're this very successful person.
Right. And eventually, you know, you are who you portray yourself to the world, and you also want to be someone that is worth attracting. So if you want to get the top of the line, like you say, like for girls and everything, you want the guy who's good looking, he's in good shape, he's got a bunch of money and everything. Well, maybe as females, even, or as men, or whoever, right? You want to kind of work for your way to be that version. So I always say, like, one of the things I always say is, like, for me, I just want to be attracted to myself, right? So I want to, you know, if I'm attracted to myself, then that's all I need. And then everyone around me will, I feel ultimately will, in my head at least, will be like, wow, I'm a fucking king, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah, absolutely. So, and then, you know, in order to, I actually forgot to mention, you know, the low self-esteem that comes from previous relationships. So I actually wanted to elaborate a bit on that. And what happens is that, you know, another thing that, you know, gives us low self-esteem is when we've had like so many breakups and so many unsuccessful partners, and, you know, things just didn't work out. And then it's like, again, it creates a negative feedback loop. And then you're thinking that you're a failure, and you had like one relationship that failed, another one. So you had like a few of them in a row. You don't know what's happening. And again, it's easy to blame the other person. But if you just focus on yourself, and you just indeed love yourself, as you said, like, this is it, it's going to be awesome. And then it will be easier for you to pick the next partner that will be different than the previous ones, you know, because I'm usually seeing that it's very, very common for people to keep on picking partners that have some similar traits, you know, in terms of personality. It's really, really stunning. Like, it's, I'm seeing this all the time. I guess both with men and women. So they do have, like, they are subconsciously seeking for some traits that, again, could be leading back to either like a significant partner that they had, like from a long-term relationship, or their parent as well.
And why do you think that is?
It's because it's basically like they have this archetype of the opposite sex that is ingrained in them, and then they don't really know what else to seek out there, because they identify themselves as being with this kind of person, and they can't really see through the issues. And again, this is where you need to work on yourself in order to realize, well, being with a partner that is, you know, that has a particular like toxic trait, it's not really good for you.
Yeah.
And
Right.
yeah, and what I've been seeing with women as well is that they usually have a problem of establishing healthy boundaries. I don't know if it's the same for men, because again, like I'm mostly working with women, but what I'm seeing with women is that even if they don't like something, they don't really know how to express it, which leads us to another issue, which is honesty. And if there is no honesty in the relationship, you know, there will be resentment. And then
Yeah.
again, it's another negative feedback loop that keeps on getting, you know, refueled. And then, you know, you can't really have, next thing you know, you can't have an orgasm with your partner, you know, because you keep on overthinking everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, and I think that's absolutely crucial. But one of the most important thing I always say, that's one of the ways to get someone to like you even more, right? I tell my men that is, you got to be fucking brutally honest. You got to just say what's on your mind. It's going to hurt
Yeah,
her sometimes. It's going to make her feel great sometimes. But what you got to do is you got to be fucking honest, because if you're not, you're a fucking liar. So when like around like girls and stuff, if I don't like their dress, I'm not gonna tell them I don't like their dress. Now I might be smart about how I say it. I might say, oh, your dress sucks. I might just say, oh, you can do better. You can do a little better than that. We can do better.
yeah, absolutely. Of course. There are different ways to give feedback. And, you know, I think that honesty is something that can be amazing in a relationship when both people are honest. And this applies to all kinds of relationships. So it's either in a long-term relationship or just a casual relationship where you see each other casually. You still need to be honest, because this is how you're getting the most out of it. And in my perspective, it's not even worth it having any other way in any kind of relationship. You know, like why?
Right. Yeah. Now, a lot of the issues that I see, though, right, is sometimes guys, they feel that they need to be honest. So they might say something like, and they might try to portray their honesty by saying something like, I really like you a lot, or like, I really love you, or something like that. And they might express a lot of what they're feeling early on. And one of the biggest fears that they have, or nowadays, and we talk about everything, is that a female might walk away when they hear that, if they're not on the same page or something like that. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that this also, like, they need to kind of ask themselves whether they're evaluating this objectively. So if you have to say something, but you feel like you're afraid, like, ask yourself, why are you afraid? And then the next question is, what is the worst thing that can happen? Okay, because even if she walks away, this means that she wasn't the one. Okay, so this is what I tell a lot to my customers as well. If you're afraid to be honest with your partner, and you're afraid to be yourself, does this mean that this person is really the one that you think that you can spend the rest of your life with? Well, probably not.
Right.
You know, because it's just not gonna work. So the worst case scenario is that you realize that, okay, this person is not for me, and I'm, you know, so
Right.
yeah, that's my take there. And I think it's so it's basically, again, it's coming back to self-evaluation all the time. Why you do what you do, why you say the things you say, and why are you with this particular person that makes you feel this way as well. So you need to be asking yourself this. So for instance, if you're a man and like what you do is that you keep on meeting women that are you know, very emotionally unavailable for you, and you keep on doing the same mistake again and again, you need to ask yourself, okay, so maybe I should start looking for other traits. Okay, because you know what happens usually, and with females as well, is that they do say, oh, I want the guy to be successful. And then what happens is that they meet the successful guy, and he's working, you know, crazy hours, 80 hours a week on his business. And then they say, oh yeah, but he's emotionally unavailable. And then she goes to the next one, and he's also emotionally unavailable, because it's the same archetype of person. So then, yes, of course, she will be having this problem. So maybe he or she need to switch their perspective and say, okay, look, if I'm not comfortable with this kind of person, like the archetype of the person is not the one that makes me feel like I'm completely honest with the partner and myself, so then maybe this is not for me. So I would say that, you know, you should never be afraid to say what you're thinking.
Right.
And if you can't work it out with your partner, this basically tells you that this is not the ideal partner. And you know, we sometimes have this foolish impression that, oh, I met my soulmate. and it's like 7 billion people in the world, but I met this one person and like he or she is my soulmate. And like statistically speaking, like there are probably like some other people out there that have a good chance
Yeah.
of being a very good match for you as well. Okay, it's probably
Right.
not the one. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, 10 or 20 or 100 of them or 1,000.
Thousands. Yeah.
You know, you
Uh,
just need to make sure that you find someone that, again, it might not, he or she might not be ticking like 100% of the boxes, but if they tick 9 out of 10
yeah.
and they don't have this one toxic trait that was, you know, that was your headache in all of your previous relationships, you should probably go for this one.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I always say, and like kind of going something that you went back, kind of in the past, just deeper in the or earlier in the conversation, I should say. You said something about, and I just wanted to address this topic where you were talking about, like how we kind of go to similar people and we go to the similar personality wise. And you mentioned something like it. Oftentimes a girl will go for someone who, they think is successful, but they might find out he's emotionally unavailable because like he's working 80 hours a week. He's really focused in on his business. He doesn't really know how to express like the comfort and the love and the affection that she might want. Right. So, but she keeps going back and she keeps going back. One of the things I've always said is you should try out each and every different types of woman. And then I tell my guys this, not only just successful women, athletes, girls who are in good shape, girls who like to read, and you got to figure out like which types of women, which brand of woman that you actually are the most attracted to, right? So you can't figure out what exactly you like, because if you keep going back to the same type of person over and over again, you're just going to be kind of caught in this loop and you're not going to maybe be able to really make it work out, right? But if you figure out what kind of like what brand of chick that you want, then you can, that's the type of the girl that you should pursue and everything, and that type of personality trait. And ultimately, like from there, maybe you find out the right brand of chick or girl that you want, right? And it might not work out the first time. Then you can kind of grow and develop on like, okay, where did I go wrong? How can I improve with the next person of this thing? And I always say maybe you should make a list of all the personality traits that you want, maybe the type of hair that she has, or maybe the clothing that she rocks, or what she does for a living, all of these things that you like and you find the most attractive, and then you kind of pursue that type of brand. And then you got to put yourself in these scenarios where you're going to meet these type of women. So for example, if you go to a bar, are you going to really meet the successful like scientist or something like that if that's who you want? No, probably not. You got to put yourself into places where you're going to meet those type of women. Maybe science conventions, maybe it's a seminar, maybe something else, right? And you have to have the confidence to go up and walk up to them, spark a conversation, do whatever you have to do, right? But again, it starts off by switching it up, not just relying on one type of woman. Just go out there, and again, and this can help develop your confidence too, is where you're going out there, you're seeing a bunch of different types of women, seeing what you like, what you find the most attractive, and this process will actually help you get that self-love a little more and deeper that you need, because it builds up the confidence that you're out there going talking to a woman, and then you're like, okay, you meet this, like a girl's opinion that you might meet, she might not be your type, and you're like, I don't really care. Like, I don't care that if you're trying to bring me down or whatever, because you're not the type of brand of woman that I specifically want. And a lot of people, and this happened to me the other day, where I was like talking with this girl, and we were hanging out and everything, and she was just brutally honest with me, something she didn't like, and I appreciated it. Most girls, they don't have the balls to like say it or like, the cojones to say, hey, stop fucking doing that. They'll let them, like a dude, like walk all over them or keep doing the same personality traits and everything. And I think as dudes and as women, they should, like as women, they need to be honest. They just got to be honest with people, because without honesty, like I said, no trust, no development, no growth.
Yeah, very, very good points. And I think that first, it's really good to get out of your comfort zone and approach different kind of people. And secondly, when you do that, you will stop generalizing the female or the male archetype in your head, because what happens when you're getting involved with the same kind of personality is that then you make some conclusions for yourself, and then you think that all women or all men are the same. Yeah. And this is simply not true. Indeed, like different kinds of people have different kinds of personalities, and then you need to actually ask yourself, how can I explore more? How can I meet different kinds of people in order to kind of broaden my horizons and see what really clicks. Because what happens is that like until you try to approach different kinds of people, you won't really know what's out there. And this is definitely not the way to go, because when you're not, and especially if you're not happy in relationships, if you were not happy in your relationships before, this kind of tells you that something is going wrong and you need to kind of, you know, change your approach. Okay. And with women, sometimes, again, I think that this happens a lot. Like I've seen this a lot, that they do mask their interest for emotionally unavailable men as desire to be with someone successful. But you know, you met him and like he's an ER doctor and he's working 18-hour shifts, and like, yeah, he won't be emotionally available. He's drained and he just wants to go home and sleep. It's not that he's ignoring your messages. And then, you know, you'll be like, oh yeah, he doesn't give me enough attention. But yeah, that's why, you know, you're at a different stage of your life. Maybe he would be better off with someone that, you know, has like a similar schedule or something like this. And then you would be better off with someone that can understand your needs better, like your emotional needs and intellectual needs better, and spend some more time with you. So, you know, of course, there might be some, you know, some cases where, you know, like one partner is going through a phase of their life where, you know, they're having some increased workload or something like this. And, you know, if you want to stick around for this because you really like the person, this is fine. But again, like even in this case, you need to accept this, and you need to not be, you know, stressed about it all the time, because like what I really advocate for is to always be accepting yourself and also your circumstances, because you are the master of your fate and you decide what you want to be doing in your life, like every day, right? So if you choose to stay in a relationship but like you always complain about it, maybe there is something wrong there. Maybe you should just, you know, like just accept the fact that, okay, I'm with this person now, and this is their schedule, and this is what they're doing, and this is it, you know? So yeah, it's really simple. And again, people do overthink a lot because they're like, and then the other thing is that, like, something that I see a lot is that people are afraid to get out of bad relationships because, again, because of their self-esteem, because they've been in a kind of an idle place for too long, for like, I don't know, several years, and then they don't know what's waiting for them out there. And in case of women, sometimes, you know, what I see is that they just don't want to break up with someone because they want the attention. And like they can't really see themselves without having a constant supply of attention from the opposite sex, and this is very, very bad, because like when you're mature enough to start dating someone, I think you need to be dating them for the right reasons, not for the wrong ones. So this needs to be clear for you from the beginning, you know. And then this is where you won't have any mixed signals, and you know, you will be engaged and you will be happy and you will be having a good time, and this is it.
Right. One of the things that I've always thought is, if you have some self-love, right, and you have the highest self-esteem, like you're comfortable with breaking up with someone who's just not a good fit for you. You just have that, you have that comfort because you know that you deserve someone who's the most thing for you. So if you're in constant arguments with like your partner and everything, is that really the best for you? No. I mean, occasionally you're going to get an argument here and there, but if it's like a daily thing, or you wake up yelling, or so like even, it could even be weekly. I mean, you and your partner should barely be fucking yelling or have any issues, you know, here and there, whatever. But if you're comfortable with each other and you live in a similar lifestyle and everything, by all means. But one of the other things that I wanted to touch up on was, just looking at my notes real quick, but another thing with mixed signals was sometimes, like oftentimes, like a guy will be talking to a girl, right? And sometimes she's hot when she's like texting back really fast, and then she might not like be really cold when she's texting like randomly weeks later or something. So sometimes she's on, she wants to meet up with him, and it might be like a month span or something. She's like meeting up with him twice a week, and then all of a sudden for 2 weeks she doesn't answer his texts at all. And then maybe like 2 weeks later she starts texting him again and again. So what do you think is some of the reasons for that, and how would you handle that specifically?
Yeah, I think that in this kind of situations, you kind of need to ask yourself, okay, if I was that person, how would I treat myself? You
Yeah.
know, so if a person doesn't reply to you for 2 weeks and then they suddenly show up because they want some attention, there is clearly not genuine interest there. Okay,
Hmm.
because like if you have this genuine interest for the person and you're thinking about them, you wouldn't text them after 2 weeks. You would reply to their message straight away. Maybe you wouldn't reply for half a day or a day because you were too busy with something, but this is it. So then you would go back to it. And this is another kind of a practical tip that I give to my customers. So whenever they are in doubt about someone, about a potential partner, they need to ask themselves, okay, what would I do if I had the same level of interest? Would I behave this way? And if not, then the answer is clear. So basically, if you do have a doubt, there is definitely something going on wrong and you do need to walk away. I think that this is like a rule that I implement in my personal life as well. And this is how I filter out people I want to be with. You know, if there are mixed signals there, it's better to cut it off now than to get hurt later. And, you know, like through this kind of filtering process, what was happening in my personal life over the years is that I managed like for each of my relationships like that I had so far, like every relationship is better than the previous one
Yeah.
because I really know what I want and I really know what kind of like person I can see myself with.
Hmm.
And if I don't get what I want straight away, and again, if you look at this really objectively from the beginning, from the first dates, if there are red flags there, you will see them. And you know, like a cold message, a very a mixed message like this, like not texting with someone after like for 2 weeks and then suddenly they come back to you, no, this is like a huge red flag. Okay, don't do this, never reply to this person again. Like
Right.
you're not worth it. Again, if this was Scarlett Johansson, like she wouldn't reply to this guy that just texted her randomly after 2 weeks. What? No.
Yeah.
You know, she has
Right.
like a contract to sign or something. So why would you take this person back? You know, that's my perspective there. And again, I think this is how you can kind of force yourself to see it a bit more objectively. Because if there are similar levels of interest, then this person wouldn't behave this way. And the reason that they're behaving this way and the reason that their behavior is different than yours is because there is no similar level of interest. So this is definitely a very, very clear red flag. And again, if it's just half a day or a day or something like this, yes,
Yeah.
maybe the person is busy. So it
Right.
really depends on the situation. And we do need to be objective. Or, you know, if it's, again, if it's an ER doctor and, you know, we're in the middle of pandemic and he hasn't texted you for 3 days, you know, give him a break. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
he's putting people on ventilator right now. Okay. He's
Yeah.
making
Yeah. Yeah.
decisions.
Calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think one of the issues for most people though, they won't, they don't have their almost self-respect to walk away from people who do this stuff to them. So for example, like, I don't know, there's been times where I've been talking to a girl or something and she might start to fade away. I can see her interest kind of starting to fade away. At that point, you know, like, okay, well, her interest is fading. Why would I want to be with someone whose interest is fading? So I just stop kind of like, we separate altogether, right? And we just
Yeah.
kind of fade away from each other. But most people, a lot of people, they're talking to someone, the girl's interest starts to fade. And a lot of the guys that I work with, it's almost something that's called the loss aversion effect, that we start to value what we lose 3 times more. And when we're talking to a girl that we really like, and then all of a sudden she starts to fade away, we don't want to lose her, okay? Or most men don't want to lose her. And when that happens, they almost try to put in more effort, but they just don't walk away because they don't have that respect for themselves that they need, because, I mean, they start to chase a little more. And ultimately, when you're starting to chase, you're kind of a weaker man. You don't show any self-respect that you have. And no girl wants to be with a guy who has no self-respect for him. So sometimes what the girl will do, right, when she walks away, she starts to fade away, and then she starts to see the other guy, the guy that she was talking to, fade away, she starts to kind of come back to him a little bit because he's showing some sense of self-respect, and which is obviously an attractive trait for a male to have.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is a great trait for, you know, for basically both sexes, because I do believe that, you know, when you're dating someone, the interest needs to be proportional, you know, and like it's basically like you're mirroring the other person with what they're doing. So if they're fading away, you would fade away. And, you know, if they're more enthusiastic about texting you or something, you can do the same. And if they're fading away, but like, and you feel like you need to start chasing again, it's probably not worth it. And again, you just need to ask yourself, okay, like, why am I even in this situation in the first place? You know, so either this girl is not good for you, or you just need to focus on self-improvement. You just need to switch focus.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say to someone, let's just say like they're in a relationship or something, right? And maybe you could be one of the girls that you work with, or maybe you could be a guy, right? And the one party breaks up with the other party. So let's just say they go break up with the guy, right? And he shows his strength. He doesn't reach out. He doesn't do anything. And then weeks later, she decides, hey, you know, maybe I made a mistake. What recommendation would you have for the party that, you know, got dumped?
Yeah, I see. This is a tough one. So it depends on how you feel about, let's say, the girl. So you would need to evaluate, okay, so she treated me in a certain way. So do I really want to go back to this person? Because I need to think about that maybe I'll have the same issue again in the future.
Mm-hmm.
If this was something that you're not really sure that if it was a one-off thing or not, like what you could do is you can actually, let's say, meet them or have a phone call with them, and then, you know, really understand why they did what they did. What was the justification? Because there needs to be a justification behind this. And you need to understand how you can be as honest as possible with this person, and it needs to go both ways. So again, if the person is not emotionally available, it's not like if the girl doesn't know how to be honest with herself, and if the girl doesn't know how to establish boundaries that are comfortable for both, then it's not going to work anyway, because she needs to self-develop as well before getting into a relationship. So again, like, it's not going to be nice for you to be dating this person. So it really depends on the situation, but again, try to be a bit more pessimistic, and then try to see like, what's the objective there, you know, like what's the objective kind of like view of the situation, and try to be a bit pessimistic and see if the person is actually interested in you. They will try to convince you more and more in order to stay, like in order to keep on seeing them.
Right, exactly. And I think, and I've always said, just to people who reach out to me with those type of questions, like, listen, I want you to really sit down and think about it if you think this person's worth coming back, right? And worth to be back into your life. Because maybe there was something, it wasn't, maybe there was a difference of compatibility, maybe there was a different, like a location issue. You don't know. Every relationship is different, right? So, but like, if she's treating you like crap, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, she's yelling at you and basically asking you to walk away, but you don't do it, and then she walks away, but then she comes back like 2 months later, is it worth it to you? Is it worth it, really? So that's one of the things that I try to instill into some of my clients' minds and everything, right? Like, you gotta learn to love yourself first and then make that decision. And oftentimes when I work with them and they develop their personal self-esteem, and they start to feel like a fucking animal and like a beast and really good about themselves, they don't want the other party back, because they realize, wow, like, there's other options out here. I'm ready to start fresh. I'm ready to start new. I'm ready to try out a whole new world. And I think a lot of people, they get hung up because they just miss the party, and they just don't know how to be alone. And again, like you said, they don't, and like you said earlier, they don't have the self-esteem to be alone. They need to learn how to be on their own, and they haven't done that because either a trauma thing that happened early on, maybe it was a past relationship, maybe they've never been single. Or I see a lot of people who hop around relationship to a relationship. They get out of a relationship, and then a month later they're in a new one, and they just keep doing that, and mainly probably because they haven't been alone. But what people need to do is they need to learn how to be on their own. They need to learn how to live and be independent. And if that way, whether you have a partner or whether you don't have a partner, you're going to be happy with yourself.
Exactly. And I think that this is actually a very good criterion for yourself to understand that you are ready for a relationship when you're actually okay being alone. You know, when you're okay being like 1 or 2 years by yourself, just be single, lose yourself in your self-development, you know, read as many books as possible, build your career, build your physical health, your mental health, do therapy, go to the gym, you know, and then at some point when you won't be missing anyone anymore, you will be in a better place to get into a relationship because you won't be bringing any baggage with you. And then the other kind of rule there is that if you keep on projecting your own beliefs and past traumas into the behavior of a new potential partner, this is kind of a red flag for yourself that you're not ready for a relationship. So for instance, I'm seeing both males and females, you know, like start dating after, let's say, a year after a really bad breakup from a long relationship. And like when they describe the new partner, they're like, yeah, but they did this. And I think this is definitely is going from a place of this and this and this. And like, no, it's not definitely, it's just you're projecting your own past experiences on this. If you keep on explaining someone's behavior in a very specific way, so if you only have one explanation, one potential explanation for someone's actions, you're not ready to be in a relationship, because you're just focusing on this one thing. Again, it's like the blue objects and the red objects I mentioned before. You're just told your brain that, okay, I need to focus on this. Let's say I need to focus on maybe like his phone will go off and it will be like a message from Tinder or something, and you're constantly looking at his phone. And if you know, like, even if he's still on Tinder and you started dating, like whether, like, if it's going well for you, he will get off Tinder, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't focus on this. Like it has nothing to do with you, and you can't control it. So this is another aspect, because what you can control is your self-development and your self-esteem and how amazing of a person you are. And, you know, like, what do you bring into the table? So this is something that you can 100% control. You can't control other things. You know, and just focus on this one, and then it will be very clear that, you know, now you are ready for a relationship and this is it. And as to your previous point, you know, yeah, definitely when someone when they don't know how to be single, it's like it's never going to work in a nice manner. It's not that after like 4 relationships over the past 10 years, you'll finally find the 5th one that will be the ideal partner. No, it's not going to happen. You know, it's like when they're like, when you have 4 friends that are all talking shit about you behind your back, it's probably you that's the problem, you know? And it's the same with the relationships. If you keep on having bad breakups, like going back into the dating scene straight away instead of going to the gym and like reading some books, like it's not gonna fix it. Okay,
you got to fix yourself. You got to fix yourself, you know. You got to fix out, you got to get better personality wise, become more charismatic, get to the gym, become more successful in your field, work harder, put your things on, rather than focus on getting the next boyfriend or next girlfriend or whatever. You focus on improving yourself, your self-development and things like that. You know, but I appreciate it. And I think we're running low on time, but I appreciate, you know, you coming on to this conference and everything today, Elena, and giving just ultimately kind of giving a female perspective on everything. And I think it's good. You can really learn from a high status male or high status female, my viewers, though, how the girls think and why, and how you can ultimately deal with mixed signals, self-esteem issues, and how you can work to personally improve, and why it's so attractive from the female mind, and why and how we as men can kind of grow on that aspect too. So I appreciate the time that you've gotten on this call and taken time to explain that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a really nice discussion.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate it.